To some extent, on Secret Glory, I found I went from being an atheist into a believer, although I'm not sure what it is ultimately that I believe in. But we certainly saw evidence of things which were supernatural, which were beyond explanation. I just don't know what force that represents. I'd like to imagine that force represents God, but I can't be sure. Just as I can't be sure if that force represents the devil or either of the above. Certainly some kind of supernatural power that I have no conception of. And by supernatural, that could well be natural to the power of 10, like the electrical storm I saw at the top of Mont Segor. But there was a layer of coincidence overlying everything. The very fact that we were recording the story in the first place, that the story presented itself to us, that we were able to find out those things, the way that one thing led to another, felt like we were being led, that we were being fed the information, that things were being deliberately given to us. And there was just a constant sense of something almost looking over one's shoulder. Things shook hands across the time periods in ways I can scarcely explain or understand. For instance, after the electrical storm, it all started with the electrical storm months ago, when I first saw the light in the castle, the light at the top of the mountain. And a few years afterwards, still couldn't explain it. But the day after the electrical storm months ago, I went into a cave in the Lombrive in the south of France with my then girlfriend, and we were hiding in the cave the next night. And there was another big electrical storm outside. We built a fire in the cave. And during the night, a German hermit living on the hillside who was caught in the storm saw the light of our fire and came into shelter and sat there playing his panpipes by the fire while we slept. Then, roughly 7-8 years later, when we were shooting the documentary, we were interviewing Christian Koenig, the chappie from one of the secret societies. And we asked each person, we said, we'll film you wherever you want to be, doing whatever you want to do. And he said, well, actually, there's this cave near here where the Cathars hid in the 12th century, and it's got great acoustics, and I'd like to be filmed there playing my panpipes. They took us back to the same cave I'd slept in 7 years before, sat down on the rock and picked out his panpipes and proceeded to go on playing this tune, which I'd heard someone else playing 7 years before. And those kind of ways, these little coincidences, little things shook hands across time like that, I can't explain. It felt there was a constant sense of there being a story or some kind of pattern. And the events which were so long ago kept reenacting themselves in a way that initially I thought it was just coincidence. But then the further we got into it, the more I started to realize that there really was some kind of underlying pattern to it all. There really was some kind of force involved. I mean, those trees around the Wewelsburg, the way that the trees looked so stunted and so pained, the way that everyone on the crew who was shooting at the Wewelsburg and the SS Order Castle had nightmares afterwards. None of us felt happy about what we'd seen down there. It was pitch black, but all of us felt like, you know, we'd been in The Shining or The Beyond or some form of bad horror movie. But those things are just fiction, whereas this was real life. And the sense that we were in the presence of those things was very disconcerting. The way that Mont Segor feels good, the way that when one's there, one feels protected, the way that the Wewelsburg feels bad, in a kind of classical sort of good-evil kind of way, is something that was alien to my experience. I don't think I even believed in good and evil before that. I thought maybe they were all just shades of grey. And the idea of ultimate good or ultimate evil hadn't really occurred to me. Yet in the Wewelsburg, coming towards the court of Heinrich Himmler, I started to really believe in ultimate evil, in something which was almost antithetical to human life, like the spiritual equivalent of antimatter, something that was so inhuman that it would freeze the blood in one's veins. A sense of, I mean, maybe for the Nazis, maybe for Otto, hell was below zero, because I certainly got, the nightmares I was having at that point in time usually involved blood, frozen blood in huge amounts of it, like walking across pack ice made out of blood. But it felt extremely cold, extremely unpleasant. And I have to say as well that the Wewelsburg still used for occult purposes, even to this day. I've got files relating to PSYOPs, which is the psychological warfare department of the American Army, involving black magic rituals in the Wewelsburg to this day, that people are still messing with this stuff. I do believe that black magic, and like anything, like nuclear power, is something that governments experiment with. I don't think they can afford to ignore it. I think maybe it doesn't always work or it doesn't have any credence, but they can't afford to assume it doesn't exist. I think they have to play with it a little bit. They have to work that stuff through. And to this day, there's stuff happening out there which I am not at all sure about. And personally, I would like an explanation as to where those billions of dollars go every year that they put into Thule in Greenland. I'd like to know what they're doing up there. And I'd also like to know how long Thule has been there, because I've heard these stories about a Nazi polar base which existed in wartime, which was signed over to the Allies at the end of the war, which has remained in continuous operation. And although Thule continues to absorb billions of dollars from the defense budget every year, no journalist has ever set foot there, and there are no photographs of it on file. Apparently it has the population of a small city and is largely built into the ice up in Greenland. It's staffed by, the kitchen staff come from Finland and Norway. They have to sign the Official Secrets Act. All the Inuits have been kept away since World War II, and they've been fighting court cases to try and get back to their ancestral hunting grounds. But no journalists ever set foot in Thule. And little things like that bug me, because they rail, and you know, I have no answers for them. I don't really know what's going on up there. For all I know, the great god Cthulhu or something might be up there. Maybe they spend those billions every year on buying endless, you know, container trucks full of raw meat or something to feed it so that they can remain in power. But I don't know what they've got up there.